Good morning, everyone. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. I'm joined here with our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, the Chairman of the Board of Legislators, Ben Boykin, our Commissioner for Department of Public Works, Hugh Grecian, and County Legislator, former Vice Chair of the Board, Lyndon Williams, also former Mount Vernon City Councilman. We're joined in the audience by our County Attorney, John Nona, our Director of Operations, Joan McDonald, and other various members of both the legislative and executive branch, important staff support. We're here today to sign the amended intermunicipal agreement with the City of Mount Vernon on behalf of Memorial Field and to move forward on a project that's been quite a while in the making and to do so as quickly as we can. Rather than wait for the drama of the signing, I'm going to do the signing right off the bat. This is something enacted by the Westchester County Board of Legislators at their most recent meeting on Monday evening, and with my signature, that will effectuate the county side of the intermunicipal agreement, which has already been approved by the City of Mount Vernon. So we now have an agreement between the County of Westchester and the City of Mount Vernon. And this is not a very impressive pen, but Mr. Williams, it's all yours.
Thank you. On behalf of I'll take it.
In year 2 of our administration, we promise we'll get better pens to hand out to the promise, Mr. Chairman. We promise. So let me go over what this means, as well as thank some of the people involved. This initiative began with the energy of Lyndon Williams, David Tubiello, who both represent the City of Mount Vernon on the Westchester County Board of Legislators, supported by Chairman Boykin and the other members of the legislature. For over 10 years, the prospective repair and reopening of Memorial Field in Mount Vernon has laid fallow for a number of different reasons. I've been on board here not quite 12 months in this job, but I know Memorial Field very well. I've long since talked about my roots in Mount Vernon. On that very field did I get my high school graduation diploma in 1970, and there as a young person in a variety of other contexts. The original plans for the renovations of Memorial Field date back to the terms of County Executive Andrew Spano and Mayor Clinton Young, which were both 2 mayors ago and 2 county executives ago. And whatever the circumstances were over the years when our administration took office, Legislator Williams approached us and wanted to make sure we could jumpstart this process, which has really not moved forward. So we held a meeting here at the county offices in late March with representatives. The mayor here, the mayor of the City of Mount Vernon was here, the members of the City Council of Mount Vernon were here, representatives for the city controller. I want to point out Mount Vernon has a unique governmental structure within Westchester County. It is the only one of our 45 municipalities that has 3 separate elected sources of authority in moving forward on an operation. There's an elected mayor, a separate city council, which is relatively unique. Obviously, Yonkers has a similar construct, but there's also an elected city controller. And on most of these arrangements, all 3 of those elected officials or elected entities have to be in sync. We saw some disagreement that day at our meeting at the end of March. I'm always the master of understatement. And we hoped that over the course of about a 60-day period of time there would be some movement. There was not. We consulted with our legislative colleagues, and we made the decision to make the offer and the intent that the county would take over the responsibility for the project, to complete the project, not to manage the field after it's completed, not to direct solely how the field would be used and operated, but merely to make sure that the project itself was completed in as timely a fashion as could be because of the length of time that has gone on. The county certainly has its fiscal concerns and headaches. Mount Vernon has severe fiscal concerns and headaches, and we thought that the most effective way to do this at that point, knowing that there was some disagreement, was to structure an intermunicipal agreement, giving the county the authority to move forward, do the deal that was originally constructed, modified by whatever joint agreement between the city and the county that would exist, and then have this field opened and used for the benefit of the citizens of Mount Vernon and anyone else who was there to use it. The Mount Vernon City Council in due course signed the IMA. There was a period of time by which there was an opportunity for there to be a veto. That veto did not occur in that time frame, so it became a valid agreement on behalf of the city. And then the County Board of Legislators went through its diligence process, which involved public debate and discussion, and then finally on Monday night it was adopted. The progress as we go forward here today. The county has hired the design firm of Woodard and Curran, which has done work for the county in a number of different contexts, to revisit the original design from 10+ years ago of Memorial Field. They did the original design plans at the time. The first step is going to be to have a surveyor go and survey the property. A lot of time has passed since that was originally done. As we all know, there have been things that have happened in that field over the course of this period of time. The survey is expected to happen slightly more than a week from now, December 17th. And the surveyors Wohl and O'Mara, and they'll look at the existing conditions at Memorial Field. Once the survey is done, Woodard and Curran, in contract with the county, is responsible for a preliminary design, building off of the original design that was planned as we go forward. The process of preparing that design will take a number of months. The target date is in 2019. Although the target date normally would be maybe 6 months or so, we're going to use all of our good offices to try to have this design dealt with as early as possible. And in the design process, the City of Mount Vernon and Westchester County will both be involved in what the redesign looks like. This is not a county set of decisions. It is a county-city cooperative decision process that will lead to this. I presume that through the City of Mount Vernon and City Council of Mount Vernon, there will be opportunity for the public to comment. They will structure what that process looks like, how they intend to include the public in it. We certainly welcome that, and if it stretches the process of design out a little bit longer, but we have community input on it, that's perfectly fine with me. The park has been used for multiple group of purposes, so there's a multiple group of stakeholders that will probably want to comment on what the design changes would be. Now, while that process is happening, there is a parallel path because there are a couple of issues that have happened that sit outside the normal circumstances. The first one is that the City of Mount Vernon, separate from the county's involvement, is working with the State Department of Environmental Conservation to remove the construction debris that was dumped there. We're well aware of the reporting that was done by both the print and the electronic media that there was an illegal dumping on the field. It was determined that there was no toxicity, but there are some potential issues in terms of the fill. The DEC will be the final determining factor as to what happens to it, and the city and the DEC will negotiate that. That has to be done in the time frame before we can take full action on the field. We can start design work and do certain types of things around that, but that construction debris must be off the field in order for us to do the heavy-duty work that's ahead of us. But that is happening between the city and between the state DEC. Separately, there is a lawsuit between the city and Keela Tennis. We are not a party to that lawsuit. Whatever the court decides in that suit will determine potentially what happens to the design of our property. Maybe not, maybe so. There's no way for us to know. We will proceed regardless of that action, and then should that action be determined in one way or another, we will then react to whatever happens, depending on what the court instructs. The court may find the city acted within their authority. It's fine. Court may determine that the owner of the tennis court was impacted in some fashion, that there'd be financial compensation. That doesn't involve the county. There may be something that involves the way the tennis courts might have to be reconfigured. That will all be up to the court. If that happens, then we will deal with that as part of the design process, and we will treat that neutrally. We do understand that the demolition of the grandstands, which is a separate pile of debris, has been authorized for removal. I believe it's in the process of being removed as it is right now. I don't know when that process will be constructed. That is the larger pile of debris out there, and that also has to be removed in order for us to act and go forward. But the issues that relate to the illegal dumping on the field, the removal of the grandstand construction debris, and whatever the ultimate result of the tennis court lawsuit is, these are all areas that is solely Mount Vernon's responsibility, and we hope that they will resolve that in whatever happens. We hope that with design plans approved jointly with community input, we'll see work begin on 2019, and that we'll move quickly to accomplish something that we all hope will be accomplished quickly. I've said that this field has a certain personal presence to me because I graduated on that field. I would love to tell you that I played high school football. I did not. I was in the marching band. That was not as impressive to the girls of that day as had I been on the football team. But nonetheless, as part of the marching band, I was on that field for 3 years of high school. And there was a time back in the 60s when the field was actually configured and Little League games were played at Memorial Field, and I participated in some of those. I've been to concerts at that field as a kid, as a teenager. It is an iconic venue. And we just want to see it return to that status as much as is possible. The county will not control it. This will be controlled by the government of the people of the city of Mount Vernon. But we will make sure that this happens. We're almost at the end of this first year of our term, and we have many things that are undone. The budget is still yet to be finally determined by the Board of Legislators. But we have tackled things that have lay fallow for a while. I remind you what you've already covered before, the Miller House and the reconstruction plan that we put in place for that, the West Help project and the plans that we put into effect for that, the long overdue union contracts that were negotiated, which we've now finally brought to closure. There's a host of things that we've inherited. We haven't made a big thing about it other than we inherited these things, and we're now trying to systematically solve it. Memorial Field fits that same narrative. We simply want to solve a problem. We want to show people that reasonable people can work together, that we can work together across party lines, that we can work together between different levels of government, and we can solve problems, that we can actually get things done, put them behind us, and move on to the next batch of problems because we don't lack for other problems. And hopefully when we put Memorial Field behind us, we'll have a sense that with each accomplishment, that more is possible if we're just willing to work together and we're willing to dialogue openly. So I'm going to ask Legislator Lyndon Williams to share some thoughts. We'll have each of our friends here say a word or two, and then we'll open it up to questions. We'll take questions from the press in general, and then obviously you can interview any of us individually, and you can go from there. But the brainchild of this solution belongs to Legislator Lyndon Williams, and so, Legislator, please share your thoughts.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer. I am so delighted this morning to stand here on behalf of the residents of the City of Mount Vernon, because today probably is the first time in almost 10 years that this field and the development and renovations of Memorial Field has been set on a path that could lead to success. Obviously, there's a lot more that has to be done in terms of getting the full cooperation of the city government, particularly in respect to removal of the debris that has been dumped there. But I believe that we have a path to success, and a path to success is important, and I really owe a lot of gratitude to your administration, Mr. County Executive. All of the members of your administration have worked tremendously over the past 12 months to really get us to this point. And I believe with the county taking the lead, it really assures Mount Vernon residents that they're going to see Memorial Field something other than a pile of rubble that's been sitting there over the past 10 years. We've gone through a lot, and basically we don't spend the time looking back because looking back is a kind of put you in a depression. But I think that looking forward, and that's how we view this, looking forward, we see the opportunities. Mount Vernon residents are resilient. They are tolerant, but they also have great expectations for the place where they live. And I believe that with the county in partnership with the city on this particular project, it will give them greater confidence that working with the county government, we can achieve a lot. When this began, I was the first time I came on the Board of Legislators was 2008, I was elected. And this was one of the first projects. John Nona was legislator. John Nona voted on this project, as a matter of fact, along with the other legislators. And we all had great expectations because regardless of the fact that Memorial Field might be situated in Mount Vernon, every single legislator had some memory or some connection to that field, either in high school, either attending concerts. They had some connection. So it was a great feeling, and I hear it even today among our legislative colleagues, that they wanted to vote on something like this. It's an iconic field, as the place, as the county executive said, and wanted to make sure that they're a part of really restoring this iconic venue. And that had not happened. That had been deferred for 10 years. So now we're getting a second chance to really restore this iconic venue. Everyone talked about the Mean Joe Green commercial that was shot there, and the little kid walking through the tunnel. And actually, when he threw the jersey to him, and really that was to some extent where we are in terms of there've got to be a transition to carry this along, and I believe your administration has taken that role in making sure that you're not going to leave it as a pile of rubble. No, that's not what you're going to do. And you're not going to look back on all of the errors and all of the mistakes and the complaints, but you're going to take the opportunity to lead in this county. And I'm so happy about that. I look forward to continuing the Board of Legislators, my colleagues on the Board of Legislators, the chairman, and I know we started, we can go back, Memorial Field kind of span Chairman Boykin, Chairman Jenkins, and even before him, Chairman Ryan, who actually were involved. So we've had a lot of history, not so pleasant history in terms of the progress, but I think we're going to have a pleasant history to look back on when this is completed. And one day, not so long from now, one day, we will be standing out there cutting a ribbon, and that ribbon will be representing all of the young people who in the future will be playing and participating in events on that field. Thank you very much.
We expect the arrival of David Tubiolo shortly, and when he comes, we'll ask him to say a few words. But the chair of the Board of Legislators, Ben Boykin, very busy this month, busy every month this year, but particularly this month with the budget. I'd like him to share a few thoughts.
Thank you, County Executive, and to my colleague on the Board of Legislators, Legislator Lyndon Williams, to Mr. Gresham, to Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins. This really is a special day for the City of Mount Vernon, but for everyone in Westchester County. I have fond memories of Memorial Field. Used to take my two daughters down there. And for you all that know that my younger daughter was a track star, cross-country star, New York cross-country champion. So we spent a lot of time there, not only for those events, but for other events. And every time I drive down the Hutch and see that field, I'm saying, no, we've got to bring beauty back to that pile of rubble that's there. And we voted on Monday. It was a unanimous vote, 16-0. We had one legislator that was absent. Had that person been there, I expect we'd have had 17-0. And several of the legislators got up and talked about their fond memories of going to Memorial Field, this iconic field in the county of Westchester. And we've got to bring that back so that the people of Mount Vernon and also all the people of Westchester County can again enjoy this iconic structure in Mount Vernon. County Executive, I was with you and Legislator Lyndon Williams at that meeting in March. And when we walked out, we said, we hope cooler heads will prevail, okay? The county executive was very kind with his words there. But we've gotten through it. We've worked through it because cooler heads did prevail. And with that, Mount Vernon signed the IMA, and now the county executive signed it after the Board of Legislators has approved it. I am looking forward to being at that ribbon cutting and being there when the kids of Mount Vernon, the children of Mount Vernon, and the children all over Westchester County again enjoy this iconic structure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, is a little shy here.
Right, yeah.
All right. But there isn't any positive decision that doesn't occur in this administration without his fingerprints on it. The bad things are all mine. But we share the positive things.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer. This has been a wonderful day for everyone. As Legislator Lyndon Williams and mentioned in Legislator Van John Nona, and I like to call myself a recovering legislator along with the county executive. But we voted on this in 2009, so this particular process, watching the transition over the years and being challenged over the different administrations to try to do what we could for the great people of Mount Vernon and for the people of Westchester County to bring the iconic structure back to life. This is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity that is in front of the people of Westchester, and it was hard work that was done. The county attorney, John Nona Mondaire Jones, who was the lead person in trying to work through the legal aspects of this, got us to this place. But it could not happen without any partnerships. So we have a partnership with the members of the various areas in the city of Mount Vernon, and everyone's being really kind about it, because at the end of the day, this is about moving forward. Right? We had tremendous support from the city council members. The comptroller wanted to have specific things as a former track star herself. And certainly the mayor had a vision of trying to make sure things happen. So again, this is a great opportunity, but it's because of the county executive's leadership. County Executive Latimer's leadership from day one about making sure we're getting things done. And he alluded to it when he was talking about the things that have happened over the almost 1 year county executive's been in office. But this is another example of making sure that we took things that were there, that were in situations that were undone for the people of Westchester, and moving them forward. And that doesn't happen alone. And with all of the partnership with the County Board of Legislators, Lyndon Williams, I cannot tell you how many meetings over the years that we've had about Memorial Field and his passion for that, and his passion for making sure the people of Mount Vernon were getting what they deserve. I like to say when we drive up the Hutch and we go past Memorial Field, that's the gateway, right? You know, when I look over on Wolf's Road there and that exit and say, Wolf's Lane, sorry, and see that's the gateway for Westchester County. We need to make sure that it represents all of the people of Westchester, and this is that opportunity. So thank you for the opportunity.
The challenge of the actual reconstruction of the field, the design, and so forth will fall to our Department of DPW. I believe Commissioner Hugh Grecian has tasked Bud Nicoletti from that team to be responsible for it on an ongoing basis. I don't know, though, if the Commissioner wants to just talk very generically about what's involved in a project like this, and we'll assume that we've resolved the issues of the debris on the field, and those things are behind us. And at that point in time, sort of what the process is like from a real-world terms. When we say, those of us who are laymen, we talk about we want to design and then the reconstruction of the field. Perhaps you can give us just a thumbnail sketch of what that general process is like.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. First of all, we're very excited. The department's very excited about this project. I mean, that's why we're in government. I mean, engineers like to build big things, and this is one of our biggest projects to date under this administration. And as the county exec outlined, we're on schedule for getting groundbreaking at the end of the year. We're going to work with the community. We're going to work with the DEC, which is our first challenge. We do have expertise in that. We do have relationships with the state, and we'll move that project forward once we get the survey done, once we get a handle on the project, community input. The process is a public bidding situation where we go out to bid. We get that process usually takes a month and a half. The design process will probably take, depending on community input, approximately 6 months. We're going to be starting those design processes with Woodard and Kern as of the first of the year. And that's it. We're just excited on moving forward with the project. We want to get this, done. I've been involved myself with this project for 8 years on and off. I did spend some time at Woodard and Kern in my career, so I'm well aware of this project. I dealt with the 3 mayors, so I'm really excited about moving the job forward. It's a great project, and again, my staff's just looking forward to it.
I'll just close some comments, and then if Legislator Tubiello arrives, we'll have him say a few words. If not, you're welcome to interview him as well as the rest of our folks. This project in and of itself has importance and merit. We've mentioned how it also links to a narrative, which I think is an honest narrative of looking at issues that were outstanding that we saw on day one, that we are trying as best as we can to figure out what is the productive way to move forward on it. And we have many more issues that have yet to be done, and I expect we'll be back here at the microphone to give you updates on where we are with homelessness in Yonkers, where we are with the bridge strike issue on the Hutchinson River Parkway and other places, what progress are we making at the airport. We owe you a press conference to lay out some visions on Playland and where we go there. With each of these different things, we're trying to be as transparent as we can. We're trying to be as available to let you know what our thinking is once we have it pulled together. What's important to note about this, I think, is the willingness of this county administration to work with local governments. I made a commitment at the beginning of the year that I would visit every single town board, village board, and city council to make a presentation, to talk about the good neighbor policy, which we've instituted, but also to show that there's a relationship recast between the county government and the local governments, that we see ourselves as the largest sibling in a family, not as a superior government that will take our problems and try to push it down to the local governments to the greatest extent possible. And to that extent, this past week when I visited the Pelham Town Board, I went to my 42nd out of 45 meetings, and every one of those are nighttime meetings, so you do the math. Every week or so, I've been out at one or more of these meetings. But it's important to note that when New Rochelle has an issue or a problem with their downtown development, they come to White Plains, and we treat them as partners in government. We treat them as equals. When Rye Brooks says, what are we going to do with the constant problem we have at the King Street Bridge, they come to the county government, and we treat them as partners and as equals in trying to address that problem. When Greenberg comes to us and says, we have a problem with bus service at Rivertown Square, we sit, we meet, we try to figure out, is there a strategy, is there a path for us to improve that connection? And we work with these governments. And we do that we do that mindless of whatever the local politics are down there. We have a project at North 60. We'll owe you an update on that in due time. When we do and we see a component change, we reach out to the town of Mount Pleasant and we make sure that they're aware of the same factors that we're aware of. This is a philosophy of government. It's not a liberal philosophy or a conservative philosophy. It's a philosophy of participation, of transparency, and of dialogue. And you don't always see that in government. Many times you see government saying, this is our corporate interest. We have these responsibilities to do these tasks, and because of those tasks, we're going to do those tasks and only those tasks, and we will treat local governments in the same way we treat superior governments as competitive corporate entities. And when our interests are at stake, we will defend our interests against the interests of the others. That's not the way people view it. They view government more monolithically, that we in government at whatever levels, from the presidency down to town hall, somehow work together because that their lives are affected by government in some way, shape, and form. They want it to be a positive influence. And then they want to go about their lives, their business, their families, their things of this nature. They don't want to see politics between parties. They don't want to see politics between different levels of government. They don't want to see the I blame you, you blame me. They want to see progress. They want to see things resolved and solved and moved on. And I would say one more thing, which gets into perhaps a religious theme, but a number of our major religions carry certain sacred scripture. And in it, in the last book of Micah, of what the Christians call the Old Testament, there's a very simple direction that's given. There are three things that are required of mankind: to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Now, without the religious element of that, I think that's exactly what we have to do. We have to do the things that are just. We have to show human compassion, even through the corporate structure of a government. And we have to walk humbly. If we solve this problem at Memorial Field, we don't have a big parade. We don't spike the football after scoring a touchdown. We flip the football back to the referee, and we go about the process of winning the game. And the world will little note what we say here. It's just what we do. And this is one more of those projects. We have to do it. We have to do the New Rochelle Family Court. We have to solve the problems of the homeless in our inner cities. That is our task. If we do those things, everything else falls into place. David Tubiolo, legislator, has joined us. We want to make sure he has a chance to have some comments, and we'll open up to questions. David?
Yeah.
Morning, David. How you doing?
George. David? Thank you very much to not only just the county executive and deputy county executive commissioner, but also my colleagues on the board of legislators with wonderful leadership from the county executive to legislator Lyndon Williams, who's always a great world of advice for me, especially with Mount Vernon, and of course, Chairman Ben Boykin. And I'll keep this short and sweet. This is a project, a legacy project, that's meant for the children and the people of Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon has very little green space to begin with, and this is something that needs to be utilized and needs to be for the people. Now, I'm not in it for the blame game. Don't want to even get into that like the county executive was saying. This is something that needs to be done. This is something we are doing, and I thank everyone behind me for helping with this project. At the end of the day, it's going to be the children of Mount Vernon and the people of Westchester that will benefit. Now, Lynn, is there anything I left out or anything I should add? I'll say one more thing real quick. It is a pleasure to serve with Lyndon, Ben, George, everyone behind me. And I just want to say this to everyone, be it the city council, the mayor, us, the public, everyone. I want everyone included in everything. I don't want to disregard anyone. I want everyone to be included, feel accepted, and have a seat at the table. So we welcome everyone. And this is not for me or Lyndon or Ben or Ken or George or the commissioner. This is for the people, and I just cannot thank everyone enough for going forward on this wonderful project. Thank you very much, everyone.
So at long last, we'll open it up for questions. Any questions from the press? Tony?
Sir, some in Westchester County might wonder why you are involving the Thomas administration and the elected officials in Mount Vernon in any way, shape, or form with figuring out what to do with this project, specifically the design phase. Why are you not appointing Ken or Ben or Lyndon and some of the prominent residents of Mount Vernon to work with the county to come up with a plan? Because quite honestly, tennis, no track, no a concert stage, keep the grandstands, no, get rid of the grandstands. The debate in Mount Vernon over what to do with Mount Memorial Field is part of the reason we're all standing here 8 or 10 years after we last covered a news conference about this. If the county's paying for it, why isn't the county deciding with input from people that you trust in Mount Vernon what to put there?
Well, the county's role, financial role in this project at this point is a $9+ million allocation of money, 3.4 of which has already been sent to the City of Mount Vernon for safekeeping. And the city itself is responsible to add $3 million plus into this. We also have from Assemblyman Gary Pretlow, who deserves great praise and recognition for his role in this, an additional $5 million from New York State to go into this project. And we think that money is going to be essential because most likely when we get to whatever the design elements are here, there's going to be costs that are higher today than they were when this was originally estimated 10 years ago. And there may be nuances that weren't anticipated that will be expensive. I think the important thing to understand is we have a structure of government, and if the government structure works, that public input, Tony, exists. We have here in the Board of Legislators the opportunity for public to comment, public forum, public hearing, depending on what mechanism it is that might trigger a formal public hearing. And I think both Lyndon Williams and David Tubiola have indicated that they intend to have a public dialogue at the county level along the lines of what you're looking at. The Mount Vernon City Council, as a legislative body, is structured the same way. They have committees and they have open public meetings and open public commentary. They were the first part of the city government to embrace moving in this direction, and I think they will create that proper structure for the public to be heard. I think what happens is the tendency of creating blue ribbon commissions or specialty activities happens when people can't trust that the normal structures of government are going to work. And they may not have worked over these 10 years since you've covered this story originally. But we have to double down on democracy. We have to be able to say what's wrong with our government today, and this one issue and in the broader issues, is not the structure of government, it's the way we apply our principles to the way those governments run. And so I'm betting that those bright people of Mount Vernon, whether they're Blue Ribbon Commission, people with a construction background, people with a recreational background, or people who just live in the community, love the field, have used it or hope to use it, that their input will be used through the City Council and through the County Board of Legislators, and we will have the ability to shape a final plan that will include the greatest amount of that input. I don't personally have a specific vision of what I want to see the field being. I'm more than happy to let the professionals who can tell what's possible within a land area and the community input shape that decision. If somewhere along the line this thing bogs down again for whatever reason, then we'll take whatever extra action at that time that we think we need. But I think through the Board of Legislators and through the City Council of Mount Vernon, we have the mechanisms in place to have public input and then have that public input shaped by the professionals at both levels of governments to get this project done. Do you want to follow up, Tony?
To Mr. Williams, please. People in Mount
Right.
The people in Mount Vernon that I know are fed up.
Yes.
They are fed up with exactly what the county executive just talked about, the finger pointing, the dysfunction, the blame gaming. What is your message to the comptroller, to the mayor, to the president of the city council about what this opportunity represents in terms of showing the people of Mount Vernon that they can all play nice?
Yeah, I think that the people, you're right, and the people of Mount Vernon are fed up with respect to how this project has gone so far, but they also have great expectations. They also are not defeated. And I think they're not defeated because they can see a county government that is willing to step forward and lead. Now, you're asking us to guarantee that others are going to follow. We cannot do that. We can't guarantee others are going to follow, but what we can guarantee is that if we lead, and we lead in the right direction, they're going to be bound to follow, because we're not going to do this on a kind of closed door. We're going to have an open process where Mount Vernon residents are going to have a say. Not only a say in what's going to be there, but in a say in, we need you to move and get this project done. Because ultimately, we are all accountable to the people who elected us. We sit in these offices not because we individually were appointed here. We were elected by a constituency, and those constituencies are going to drive the decisions about what we make, especially with Memorial Field, given, as you said, that they are fed up with it.
So do you have a specific message to?
Well, my message to the local officials is that this is an opportunity, unlike many opportunities they've had to move this field forward. This, as I said when I began to make comments on this, is a path, a clear path that has not existed before, where the county has stepped up and said, yes, we're willing to take a lead role in making this happen. A single county government has taken that role. That is a very, very significant difference from where we are a few years ago. And I believe that in the Latimer administration, I have utmost confidence that they will be able to work with the Board of Legislators, and we're going to get this accomplished working with the city government.
Let me
Yes.
Let me just add to that. We'll take any other questions. We had an alternative path that we could have taken. We could have said, as a county government, we're not happy with what hasn't happened. We're going to pull out a commitment to this field. We're not going to add any further money that might have been budgeted for this purpose. We're going to ask just for an accounting of the money that was spent, give us back what hasn't been spent and show us bills, and we're out. We could have done that. And that is not what we did. So I think the commitment here, as it is in the other issues we've mentioned, is to see if we can help solve the problem. So I'll open it up to other questions. Anyone else have any other questions? Ty.
So I'm a little bit confused about the process and how it will work and who's going to make the final call. Because you guys are all talking about the fact that everybody's going to get to have a say.
Yeah.
But at some point.
Well, the county government, Ty, the county government is now responsible for completing the project. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for the final decision, the go decision, it'll be at the county. But if you take that fact and you lead with that fact, it'll sound to a person in Mount Vernon like the county's going to jam the decision down. So don't look at the ultimate final decision. Look at the final decision as being the legal final product of a process. And the process is open. The process is inclusive. So that a resident of Mount Vernon hears this and they say, the county's coming in. What's the county going to do? County's going to get the project done. The city is going to run the facility, manage the facility, book the facility for the benefit of the people, of the citizens of Mount Vernon. And by the way, that's not unprecedented. The legacy program under Andy Spano did the same thing in communities countywide. And in the other communities that we were in, that's exactly what happened at Bread Flowers Field in New Rochelle. That's exactly what happened in Columbus Park and Portchester. The county came in, allocated money, and agreed upon plan. The county said, yes, we add this much money. The project gets done. The locality runs it for the benefit of the people. That's exactly what's going to happen here. So final decision process, when we come down to do we sign off on it, it'll be the county government signing off on it. That's what this IMA allows us to do. But it'll be done with the involvement and inclusion of the government of the city of Mount Vernon and the voices of the people of the city of Mount Vernon.
So questions like 6 lane versus 8 lanes and 3 tennis courts versus 6.
Those are all the decisions to be made. Today, we, the county government, has not made the decision it's going to be so many lanes, it's going to look this way. What normally happens in these things, and this is where you and the people involved in the design, they'll look at, this is why you're going to survey the property. You're going to see how much area you have. We've seen the debate about, can the 8-lane track also accommodate the tennis courts? Now, we don't know if the tennis courts are going to be mandated or if it's going to be within our authority to determine if there's a tennis presence at the field or not. That has to be determined when the court acts. But the bottom line is the professionals will look at the layout and they'll play with different strategies and determine we could do this and then we could do that. Here's where the stands might be, and then you'll get input on it and there'll be dialogue back and forth. But it's trying to jump through the final decision process, which we don't know. How much do we accommodate to get how much good elements in it? All of that is yet to be done. The one thing that I promise you as a member of the press, all of you as a member of the press, is that we'll have these updates. We'll make sure that you know where we are in our progress, as we have with Sprain Ridge Pool, as we have with other projects that are out there. So it's not just here's what we're going to do. The next thing you know, it's a final decision. You're going to see some of the process, all the steps along the way. Tony, before I go back to you, let me just go to a couple of other folks. Yes, Jonathan.
Just really quickly, the money that was already invested, how difficult has it been to get an accounting for where it's been spent?
Well, this IMA includes a forensic audit that will tell us, what's happened. We know that some money was allocated toward this project dating back over the 10 years. We want to see the receipts, so to speak, the authorizations of the amount of money that's been spent. At some point in time, the audit function will determine that X number of dollars was legitimately spent toward this purpose and Y number of dollars were not. The Y number of dollars, in theory, is sitting in an account. If it's not sitting in an account, then that's an obligation by Mount Vernon, which had control of the money. And their obligation ultimately is to take that amount of money, which they contracted to deal with, and apply it toward the Memorial Field project. In real world time, cashing up money to pay vendors, the county will take the direction. And so we're not going to wait and say, wait a minute, everything going to stop until Mount Vernon does this, that, or the other. We're not going to do that. We're going to move forward on the project. That obligation legally exists. At some point in time when the project is over, I presume, because the way the IMA is written, our lawyers will meet with their lawyers, and they'll come up with some understanding of how we settle whatever is outstanding at the end of the process. But we won't let that settlement process slow down the action of reconstruction that is necessary. And what we also won't do is we won't get involved in polemics with the press about who's doing what to who. Some things happened. We did not respond to that. We did not take the bait. We didn't go into big, long political battle over it. We just said, fine, we'll resolve it at the appropriate time. We understand that Mount Vernon has stressed finances. Ours aren't so great either, We've had that press conference already. And there are a lot of communities that are not in a position to be able to shell out a certain amount of money, even if they've legally committed themselves to it. But our mission here isn't to punish anybody per se, but we want an accounting. An honest accounting. And if mistakes were made, they need to be identified. And then how we respond to those mistakes and how we then handle the actual financing of this project will yet to be determined. And I think we have to get to that preliminary design redo that we've talked about to really know what's the new estimate of the cost here. Because we talked about it being a $12+ million project. Could be more than that when we get down to brass tacks. That is where Gary Pretlow's allocation of $5 million from the state is very, very helpful to us, and that may provide the buffer that we need in order to complete the project and then go back and reassess what happened through the forensic audit. Other questions? I know Tony's waiting, but I'll go to Mark. Go ahead.
You talked about putting this behind you, but you talked about the illegal dumping, like something like 18,000 cubic yards in there. No one's been held responsible for this. Why hasn't anyone been held responsible for it? Is there a role that the county can take to bring some closure there?
Well, from our standpoint, since we weren't involved in managing the field at the time of the dumping, we're not in a position to know what, when, where, how it occurred. We ourselves did not go in to assess the element of the dumping. That was the responsibility of the state. For our purposes, in order to move forward, we are getting involved in this project in order to complete the reconstruction of the field. The state DEC can determine in whatever fashion they can about what the proper disposal of this dumping is. And then at that point in time, there's any number of investigative entities that could investigate how these things happen. It could come from within Mount Vernon itself. It could come, in theory, if there's a perception that there's a criminal action that occurred to this. It could come from the district attorney. The state has investigative powers that are broad-based and can investigate anything it wants at any level of government within the state. It's not our administrative power or responsibility right now to investigate the whens and wheres as what happened. If that happens, fine. If that happens in a way that impacts us implementing the changes that we have to make, then we'll have to deal with it at that time. If some higher level of authority comes along and says, stop, don't move anything, we need to do this, that, and the other thing on an investigation. But we're not focused on when, why, fors of that issue, nor the tennis issue, nor the grandstand issue. We are now trying to make the best of the situation that exists post that to make sure that we go forward. Okay, Tony, we're back to you.
Who signed the IMA on behalf of the City of Mount Vernon?
John, specifically President of Lisa Copeland is President of the City Council. It was a vote by the City Council. Her signature verified that it was a unanimous vote of the City Council for the IMA.
Seems to me it's the kind of thing that the mayor's signature should be on. What should we read into the fact that not only did the mayor not sign it, the mayor's not here and no one from the city is here?
Well, let me say that we did not view this as a joint press conference with the city or the state DEC or any other entity. This is the county activity that occurred this week and where the county is going to go forward. So in fairness to the electeds of Mount Vernon, we did not ask them to come here, nor should they be criticized for not being here. In terms of my understanding of the law as it exists for Mount Vernon is that the city council took an action, and there was a certain period of time in which the mayor had veto authority, and if he didn't exercise it, then the action of the city council becomes law. It's very analogous to what happened here on term limits. The Board of Legislators passed a term limits law. My predecessor had a certain number of days to sign it or veto it. He did neither, so it became law at the end of a certain number of days. The same applies here. What happened post that, an amendment and all that kind of stuff, happened outside of the approval process. The approval process occurred when a certain number of days passed by, and it became law. So, and the city council president had that authority. The dialogue that we've had with all three elected elements of the city, as I understand it, as I stand here today, is there's cooperation. There's a willingness to work with the county, let the county do what has to be done. I'm sure, Tony, when we get to the nitty-gritty, there'll be some disagreements. It always happens, you know, and that'll probably be on poor Hugh's head. He'll have to figure out how, when the city DPW says, no, we don't want that, or, you know, whatever, one part of the city government says it's okay, another part doesn't, then we'll come back, and if we have to have more conversations from the legal standpoint, we'll have those legal conversations. But my understanding of this agreement gives us the ability to move forward, put a timeline that we can live up to. And, you know, back to one of the other questions, you know, I've said this before, so it's not an unusual statement. I would very much like to be in the new renovated Memorial Field in June of 2020 and have the high school, Mount Vernon High School graduation back on Memorial Field where it once was. June of 1970 was the day that I was on that field getting my high school degree 50 years ago. And I would very much like to be in the stands to watch the class of 2020 get their diplomas in a renovated Memorial Field. So if there's a timeline in my head, that would be a nice timeline. We're not going to rush a project. We learned that at the pool over in Yonkers. We're not going to rush a project to hit a timeline that's symbolic, but I think it would be excellent symbolism if we could hit that mark.
Last question then
Okay.
for me anyway. I'll ask you the same question I asked Mr. Williams, which is, what is your message to the mayor, the comptroller, and the president of the council about what this represents in terms of an opportunity to show the people of Mount Vernon that they can put the larger needs of the community above their own political needs or political differences or bad blood?
Well, I would say, in essence, what I said a few minutes ago. The county government could have walked away from this, and we would have been justified to do it. We made available through the legacy program money that was available to various municipalities. Those municipalities that took us up on the offer now have fields. In fact, some of them now have to be renovated because it's been 10 years of operating on those fields. The problems that have happened in Mount Vernon look, they're unfortunate. And some of it is involving the current moment. Some of it involves things that have happened before by people who aren't in office. My message is this. Government can work if people are committed to making it work. I am a son of Mount Vernon, and I am committed to making this work. I'm not the professional that writes the IMA. I'm not the professional that does the design work. I'm not the legislator anymore that does the legislative negotiation to get the votes necessary. But I am the person that says we have to govern in a different way. We're trying our best with ups and downs here at the county level. We're not perfect. It's a big job. It's a new administration still. We will make mistakes in the future, and you'll catch us on it when we do. But the bottom line is that we don't believe that fighting between us works. As a Democrat, I extend my hand of respect to my Republican colleagues. Let us work together. As a county level official, I extend my hand to the municipal officials and to my friends that I served with in the state government. Let us work together, and let that be a message for anybody at any level of government. We can make it work if we want to make it work. Any other questions? Yes, Mark.
Just quickly, the Board of Legislators approved the lawsuit, so does this end the need for litigation from the county?
Well, yes, it does. The fact that the authorization existed was when we thought we might have to go through a more contentious route, and truthfully, we only got that as a backstop. We understood that negotiating an agreement was the better way to go, and that's what we've gotten to. But you do need, carrot stick. So the stick was sitting there, but we didn't need it. The carrots got us there, and that's good enough for us right now. We're not looking to sue anybody per se. We're not looking to fight. If we wanted to do that, we could have been knee-deep in 10 more lawsuits. But I think we've shown on this issue and on other issues that while we're prepared to fight, we're also prepared to negotiate, and we're prepared to come to agreement. So with that, I'm going to thank you for your extensive amount of time allocated to this. I invite you to talk to any of our colleagues up here in a one-on-one setting if that suits your purpose. And I thank you, and happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas.